Hi, friends, and welcome to Mystic Bloom, the podcast where modern mysticism meets feminine embodiment. I'm your host, Jenny Scholl, founder of Mystic Bloom, and fiercely devoted to helping women reclaim their sacred power, align with divine wisdom, and embody the fullness of who they are. Together, we'll explore spirituality, sacred alignment, and the art of living in flow with your feminine truth. This is a sanctuary for transformation and a safe space for spiritual exploration. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, friends. Today on the podcast, I have a really special guest. Her name is Cram. She owns a wellness studio that offers breathwork classes, somatic therapy, and life coaching for women. And she specializes in helping women tap into their feminine, sensual body and release sexual trauma from their past. She is a woman. She is a wife. She is a mother of 6. And I met Holly, and we're going to tell the story of when we met, and to be able to watch her now become a bridge for so many people within her community, within her religion, within her church, expand their ideas and introduce mysticism and explore what it means to speak to God. This is a beautiful and powerful episode, and I am so glad you're here. All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Mystic Bloom podcast. I am here with Cram, which I'm so excited to speak to you. Thank you for joining me.
I'm so excited too. I'm looking forward to this. We actually talked a couple months ago about doing this, and then we didn't end up doing, which ended up being perfect. I'll tell you that. Like, there was still some growth there I was going through when you reached out. And I remember thinking, like, yeah, let's go talk about it. But also I'm in the jungle right now. So we're going to hear about the jungle,
Mm-hmm.
But I've come to a little bit of a better place right now. So it's actually perfect timing.
Oh, I'm so excited. And it's so amazing, like the timing of that, right? Like sometimes there's those threads that we follow, or we're like, okay, I know this is going to happen. Or some people call it planting a seed, where you're like, this is going to happen. It's not quite in bloom yet. It's not quite ready.
Totally. That's what it was for sure.
And then when it is, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yay. Well, first, I would just love for you to share. You've been through a whole journey.
Yeah.
Recently and in your lifetime. So we'll take a look back. But first, I would love for you to share, like, who you are as the woman right here, right now, today.
Ooh. Well, today, because I'm a different woman tomorrow. I feel like, isn't that woman?
Yeah.
Right now I am deep in coaching and helping women to really discover themselves, their feminine energy. I work with women who are tired of being in their masculine. And so we sit down and we find ways to be able to just kind of drop into their sensual body. I teach breathwork. I have a family I've got 6 kids, and really, really busy with that, but they're getting older. So they're becoming a little more independent. So it was just last year that I stepped into, like, what do I want to do now? What do I want to do to really nourish myself and pour into myself, because I've been pouring into my children for so many years. And I got really, really excited about it. So right now is kind of that blooming stage. Like, I'm blooming now into like Holly, and not just roles that I've played for the last several years.
That is so beautiful. And I think so many women are going to resonate with that. Especially, I don't have children, but there's so many moms that I talk to that have reached this point of giving and giving and giving, and their thoughts are beautifully always on others. And then, just like you said, there comes a space of a little freedom, and there's this beautiful chance to explore.
Yeah.
And rediscover and play.
Yeah. Like, you've got all these hours in a day. Like, what am I going to do with these hours? Like, what do I want to do? I don't want to just do the chores. Like, I want I want to lean into like me, who am I, self-discovery. So I think there's several of my friends in that stage as well. So it's been fun to kind of be like, what did you do today? Like what I wanted to. It was amazing. Let's go to lunch,
What I wanted to. I love that. Yeah. And it's so beautiful. So one of the reasons I definitely wanted to talk to you, and we'll get into this more, is that Holly and I had a meeting at a breathwork retreat at like a specific point in time and unfolding in both of our lives. And then we haven't really connected since then. Little things here and there, Instagram messages or support. Your family went through a really tragic, beautiful loss earlier. And we can touch on that if you'd like. And just little messages here and there. But I've been able to watch, one of the benefits and silver linings of social media is this beautiful blooming and unfolding of you as a woman, as you as a pillar of your family and in your community, and sharing with such authenticity and vulnerability. And the response that I've seen has been really permissioning, I guess, to a lot of women around you.
Yeah, it's been beautiful. Yeah, we met in a time where I was just opening up to this world of spirituality, mysticism, all the things. And I remember when we were at that retreat, I thought, like, I had called my husband after the first day and was like, I'm coming home. Like, I told him, book me a flight, I'm coming home. And he's like, why? And I'm like, I don't know what's happening here. I can't understand it. And it's freaking me out. And I want to go home. And he was like, babe, you felt like you needed to be there. So why don't you give it another day or two to kind of feel that out? He's like, I don't believe that God would have you come to this place and then you just bust out of there.
What beautiful advice and reflection.
It really was. Like, I was like, okay. And so, I mean, I came to these classes, and what was happening is that I had grown up in a very black and white, strict religion that kind of warned us against energy work. People who say that they're healers or things like that. So anything that was mentioned that was like energy, immediately I would shut down and be like, oh, I can't do that. And that's bad. So when we were here at Advanced Energetics of Breathwork, I mean, I should have expected it. I was sitting there like, it's so rich in energy in a way that I didn't understand. And so what happens when this new truth kind of begins to form in our existence is, for me, immediately rejection, right? Or like label it bad. This is bad because I don't understand it.
Right.
And that's what was happening is I could feel that these women, including you, had this beautiful relationship with energy and with breath work, and almost that you could move energy and you could touch it and it was palpable. And so there was a point where I left. It was so much for me and overwhelming. And I was trying to wrap my mind around all of it that I got up and I left and I went and sat under a tree outside. And that's when you came out and you sat with me. And it was one of the most important conversations to me because you created this bridge between my world and this new world that I was stepping into just by using different language. Do you remember that conversation where you were like, you were just in it?
I do a little bit. So for anyone who's listening at home, we were at this Advanced Energetics breathwork through Pause Breathwork. And I was there helping facilitate. And I do remember that some of our teachers called me up to the front and asked me to demonstrate how I would move energy through my body. And in that specific one, I was channeling Mary Magdalene. So it was like, how can I open to this field of feminine love? And how can I open to this deity and this goddess and these things? And I was just letting it move my body.
And you could see it. It was like you looked around that room and like the women's jaws were just like dropping because you couldn't deny it. We all felt it. We could see it. And we were like, what is happening in front of us? It's so beautiful. Like everything in me was lighting up. And yet I was so confused because I was like, what is this new thing?
Which is so normal. So many people, and I really appreciate you even just saying that I was a helpful bridge, because that's one of my missions, and what I do believe is one of my goals here on this planet is to help be a bridge,
Yeah.
because so many people fear what they don't know. Me
Yes.
included. I've gone through it in my life. If you don't know something, it's scary. It's much easier to go to safety and the known. So I remember when you left the room, and there were a few people that were supporting at this retreat, and one of them got up to go after you, and I paused her and I said, I think I need to go. And I had an inkling. I was like, what the timing of it? I was like, I think I just freaked her out.
Yeah.
And the
Well,
conversation we had was just so beautiful.
Mhm.
I felt like I was able to still hold that energy and that presence. And you were just in this beautiful place of it felt like remembering and things connecting in a different way that they had connected before. And I very specifically remember you kind of coming to the conclusion of like, oh, I don't have to choose.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to pick a side. Like, the
Yeah.
sides don't exist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And and you were helping me find a language that fit my current language, right? So when things were being talked about energy, you said, well, what if we changed that and we said spirit? Like this is the light of Christ that you're feeling, and there was something else that you were like, well, what if we just tweak that just a little bit? When they're calling it this, you called it this. And it was the first time I was like, oh yeah, okay, now that feels good because you used my language.
Yeah.
Like now I looked around and was like, okay, I can accept that because I understand it more. And so I was able to go back in there and have such an amazing experience at that retreat because I actually started in my mind. It was almost like I was changing the language. Whenever something would be said that that didn't make sense or triggered me, I was like, okay, but what would you say in my language? And then it was like, okay, that feels okay.
Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful. Language is such a funny thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like our human limited capacity to try to put words to these big energies and these unexplainable things. And like we do our best, and it's helpful in one regard, but then sometimes it boxes it. And if it's not in that box, yeah. So I love that. And I love that you are now continuing to do that for so many. Like you've brought it back to your church.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been really cool because, I went on to become a breathwork facilitator. I lead these classes and I use those tools that I took from you of like, okay, when I lead these classes, I know that if I say a certain word, I can tell if it triggers them. And so I can shift it like, okay, they don't like when we say God, let's say universe. And that feels better for them and they can continue on. So in my own church, it's very similar. So people were not very open to breath work, not open to somatic therapy. Work like that is scary to them because they don't know anything about it. So, I've really been able to bring it to the people in my church and be like, no. But what if, let's look at it like this? Like, can we be a bridge? Can there be a bridge? And can we hold on to both? And it's really sad because I have come across a lot of people that feel like they have to choose. Right. And so I feel like my role or one of my opportunities in life is to be like, you don't have to choose if you don't want to. You can choose if you'd like, but there's also a capacity to hold it all. Let me show you how.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And it's so needed because I truly feel, there is a divide, especially right now between like religion and spirituality. Yeah, when you kind of go underneath the layers of the organized religion, it is so energetic and it is so spiritual and like it's juicy in there. And it's like we are speaking the same language, but in a different accent. I don't know.
Totally. I know. And you know what? Like, there's things that as I've studied, I mean, I've studied shamanism, I've studied Reiki, I've studied all these different things. And as I do, I see so many like similarities between this religion of my childhood and these other different modalities or spiritual beliefs. And I'm like, okay, the rituals we do here and the rituals we do here, look at them, compare them. They're so, so similar.
So
Like,
similar.
you know, the elements of the earth and the air and the fire and the water, they're all in this religion. Like for my religion, you know, there's things like the sacrament,
Mm.
right? And this is the partaking of bread and water and things like that. Well, when you grow up in the church, you just kind of like do it and you don't think about it. But this is like a ritual. This is like this is a ceremony. And what I've tried to help people see is like you have all the elements of the earth in this. Like you have spirit, which is fire, you have bread, which is earth, you have the water, you have, you know, it's like all there. And this is what creates miracles. And so someone who's into shamanism or and looks at that and goes like, oh, look, it's
Yeah.
all these religions have these beautiful things that they do to draw people closer to God and develop their relationship. And it all gets to be beautiful.
Oh, I love that so much. And it goes back to like just the intentionality behind all of these rituals. Right.
Yeah.
Because if you, like you're saying, like if you just go through the motions, and I believe in your religion, it's sacrament. Where I grew up, I think we call it communion. I think it's probably
Yeah.
the same-ish thing. And I actually was at a church with our friend in common, and it was like a big mega church, and they like were dishing out these little cups that had little wafers and little thing. And I just looked at it, I was like, this is ritual at scale. Like,
Yeah.
how else do you get everyone to do the same ritual in the 10 minutes? You know, and I was like, this is very interesting. But I was like feeling into it. And around the room, you could feel there were people that were just like, going through the motions because that's the part of the service we were at. And there
Yeah.
were others that were really like just being with these elements and like just really being with everything that they represented. And it's that shift of like, it's all there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. And I love that you are diving a little bit more into the women. You started a women's group. I'd love if you could just speak a little bit about like what draws you to kind of reconnect with some of the more feminine lineages
Yeah.
within religion, within Christianity, within any, all of
Yeah.
the rituals.
Yeah. Well, it actually started. I was walking through Costco and they had this like little book and it said the women of the New Testament. And I was like, oh, that looks interesting. It was all like illustrated. It was really beautiful pictures. And I thought, I want to pick that up. I want to read that. So I bought it and I came home and each page was a different woman in the Gospels, and they just kind of talked about this woman and what we probably didn't know about her at that time or what this meant when this happened to her. And I started practicing for the first time, connecting and channeling like these women and their stories. And I'd never done it before, but I just thought, you know what? Like, I want to experience what it was like for this woman. And so I'd read their story and I kind of connect to my breath and kind of go into a meditation. And then I reach out to her, this woman in this story. And I felt this connection where I saw her. It was like she would allow me to see her and feel what it felt like to be her during that time. And then I would thank her. And then the next day or the next time in my meditation, I'd go to the next woman. And so what happened during this was like just this real appreciation for the women during that time. Um, and there was a page on Mary Magdalene. And what was interesting is when I went to connect with Mary Magdalene, I couldn't. There was like this like barrier. And I remember being like, oh, that's weird. And I felt like you're not ready. Like I almost like this guard around her. And I thought, okay. And back in that time, I hadn't studied anything about her. So I was still of the belief that she was a harlot and she was a woman with devils in her that were cast, right? Like I didn't know anything about her. I was just like, interesting. And And it wasn't till a couple of months later, I had this poll to read, and we actually were passing some books across for a while, this book about Mary Magdalene. And I started reading it, and my awareness of her and my knowledge of her expanded. And I started realizing, whoa, this picture of her that was created, right, wasn't true. And as I got to know her a little bit deeper, then that opened up to me even further. And then I was able to connect with her. But looking back, I'm like, that was really interesting. I just wasn't ready. And it was almost like,
how fascinating. It's like she was like, hold on.
yeah.
Almost like, I want you to know me,
Yes.
not the image you currently have of me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that was really, really cool. And then I just decided, women need more women.
Yeah.
Women need more connection like this, like not just the people on the other side. I don't want to just connect to the women who are here on earth. I want to connect more to this and be able to share in this kind of awakening, as you've spoken of women's spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And I love your podcast so much. I've told you, I'm like, I'm a groupie. I listen every week because I'm so happy that it's being voiced and being said to the world. Like, there is a movement. Like, can you feel it? Because I feel it. And there's women around in my community that feel it. And so I wanted to create this place for people to gather, women to gather and share that and share this new awakening within them. And I called it Eve because I felt like Eve, she was the mother of all living, and it was kind of to honor her.
Oh, I love it. And it's so needed.
Yeah.
It's so needed. There's these things, and almost like our experience under the tree, it's like sometimes you feel things, but if you don't have the words, or if you don't have a guide, or you don't have someone else that's doing it, our brains don't know it's possible, right?
Yeah.
And so to like bring people together and to speak the words and to be in nourishment and to share just as women, like our experience on this planet right now, and the rising of what I call the feminine faith, where it is more, in my opinion, a little more expansive and a little bit more flowing and a little bit more nurturing than some of the very rigid, very structured rules and more masculine type energies that we've had on this planet, which I understand were needed at that time to kind of pull us together and say, we believe this. And now we're like softening again to be like, this, and God is also in this tree and this bird and this, it's an expansion, is how I like to see it, versus like a shift away from.
Yeah. 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 I see kind of the patriarchal faith as like, just like you, the structure that when we're young, right? When we're young in our awareness, when we're young and we don't know how to use our agency well, sometimes that structure can help us keep us safe until we can. And so one of the things that I've even like used with my own children as far as teaching, it's like, okay, when we're parents and you haven't had the opportunity yet to have a child, but you're going to see it. I know like you're going to see what I'm saying is like, when you first parent these children, they're like, you want to be able to say, just love each other and be nice and like get along. Okay. But they don't, right? And so you're like, what am I going to do? So you create this like structure for them, these boundaries for them. And you're like, okay, you need to, if you hit your brother, you're going to go in timeout. Like you have this punishment, and it almost becomes this little like fear-based thing when they're little. And this structure is keeping them safe. You can't run across the street without holding mom's hand. Well, is that like a real thing? Like that's actually not a real thing in life. But while they're small, that is real because it protects them. And so when I look at church, I'm like, there's these like rules, these like boundaries, these like these books that tell you how to be a member and things like that. To me, I'm like, this is elementary. This is like, okay, let's keep some structure to it, help keep you safe while you're learning how to use your agency. And at some point, your teenagers get older and you start giving them a little more room to like make decisions on their own and fail and get back up. And then they go off and to be an adult and they're creating their life. And you just hope as parents that you taught them some good things, some tools to use in their life. And so that's how I've seen it with this structural religion and spirituality, is like, I can honor the structure that helped me in my childhood to learn certain things that kind of kept me safe. And then honor the fact that I've graduated from the structure and I'm now more in this place of like tasting life and doing it on not my own, with God, but like expansion.
Oh, I love that. And I love this whole metaphor. And it feels like too, like knowing that the church is there is like a foundation, like you can come back home. You can pop in, and expand and do this. And it's just, it's like a spreading of the wings in a very natural, like rite of passage and a very natural exploration on the expansion of consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I believe, I was thinking about it the other day, and, Yeshua, when Jesus came to earth, and I was like, oh, it makes so much sense to me why things were put into like, God's like a father. He's such a great storyteller, and the parables and the bridges. And again, how does he explain these really big concepts of consciousness and awakening to people he just met or have known him his whole life as he was growing up? And it's like, and it's like creating the bridge and speaking their language and doing these stories, which I love. And I love when I can view the Bible in that way. Because I'm like, oh, look at this and look at the energy beneath it. Don't get stuck just in the do this. It's a do this, because it can talk to so much more. So it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this might be a segue or a pivot, I'm not sure, but I know that you and your husband have been working on a project, and I've kind of been watching, I watched your family deal with loss, but then also like this incredible faith and pillars of the community that have seemed to just strengthen. And like, it seems like God is very active in these details and in your lives.
Yeah, our community was so beautiful. They surrounded us. Our 13-year-old son, drowned in our backyard in our pool, and it was a really, really traumatic experience. And through it, we've got to develop a relationship with trauma and grief that we hadn't before, and we felt like we had been prepared, like for years before this, that we were given lots of tools to be able to handle and work through the trauma, so that when it happened, it was like, okay, it's happening, and I could see it. And even as like a person who works with people in trauma, I'm like, oh, here it is. Like I could see it in my body. I could see where it was showing up. But I had the tools to get me through it, like easier, faster, and stay in alignment. So it was about a week and a half after we'd buried Beckham, and I had woken up in the middle of the night. I always seem to receive like revelation or inspiration at like 3 a.m. Like there was like a certain time for a while I was like waking up exactly at the same time, and it was wild. But I heard the words, how to speak to God, like teach him how to speak to God. And I was like, what is this? And I sat in just quiet, and I heard God tell me, like, you're going to form a course to teach people how to do what you and Mark do, like the way that you speak with God, because we don't do it in a traditional way. We don't pray in the traditional way. Like we really do sit in counsel with him. And I see God as kind of like my life coach. And I I sit and I say, this is how I want my life to be created. This is what I want. Can you help support me to get there? And when I'm in something, help me see the higher perspective of this, because I know that I'm being led in the direction of this beautiful life I'm trying to create, and that whatever shedding is happening for me. But sometimes I need to be reminded that, like when you're in the middle of it and you're like, this hurts really bad. Sometimes you need that reminder. Yes. And like, you wanted to create your best life and your highest self to be able to be in this world, like, then these things need to shed and these things need to happen, and trust me, and so this course, I knew exactly who to call to create it. We'd had this beautiful experience a couple weeks before, and so we created this course, and really what it's for is anyone who wants to dive into building a stronger connection with God and with their own self. Mm-hmm. And it's the processes that my husband and I have learned, along with some of our best friends who we pulled into the course and said, can you teach, a couple of the modules of this, because you're the genius at it. This is like your genius, and it's just the things that really supported our connection. And it includes, the food we eat. It includes, the media we allow into our life. It includes really just clearing out. We call it clearing the vessel. And so, like, our body is this vessel for our spirit within. And if we want to connect to this, I call it God frequency, we got to clear out that chaos in our bodies. And so there's like processes to that really worked for us. And so that's what we teach in this course, just so that people can, it's not for there's no religion. There's nothing attached to it. It's like, what is your higher power? What do you call it? And how can we connect you to it deeper so that you can be connected to your intuition and all the things that support you in creating your happiest life.
Oh, so oh my gosh. I'm like about to cry right now. This is so needed. It's so needed, and it's so beautiful. And again, just like a testament to you and Mark for, as you're going through an unspeakable loss, holding this faith and this pillar and this personal relationship with God, and not only holding it, but very publicly sharing it.
Yeah. And
really, like, it's unlike anything I've ever seen, honestly. Yeah. Of just being like, wow, like how strong you guys are in your faith and your partnership and your family and your community. And I love that you have taken the time to put this together to share with other people, to say, like, this isn't just some secret that we have here in this house. Like, this is available and it's accessible, and we want you to have it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, part of that was one time that I was connecting with Beckham. Beckham's our son who passed away. He was joking. He was like, you hear me so clearly. Like, it's wild, And I was like, I've been working on this for a while, even before you passed away, And he was like, Holly, 'cause I'm his stepmom. And so he's like, Holly, do you know how many kids up here like wish that their parents could they could talk to their parents? And he was like, I'm like a celebrity here that like I get to talk to you guys. Oh, and he was like help their parents learn how to do this, because they're just dying to connect to you on this side. And so it was like this moment where I was like, yes, like that, I want to do that. And so that fed this course even more of like, there's so many people from this side that have lost loved ones that would love to have that connection. But sometimes we don't think about the loved ones on the other side who passed that are like, I want to connect to you too, And even though I believe that they can be around us at any time, it's different than like communicating, talking, sharing your heart, And so, wow. I really felt like there's a lot of people on the other side that want this course to happen too, so that they can connect.
Yeah. And that is so beautiful. And I love doing it through like that divine channel. And side note, we can talk about this more, but have you listened to the Telepathy Tapes podcast?
No.
Okay. Like it's just like that, you know, when things are in the field and you're like, oh, things are happening and there's like
Mm.
vessels popping off in every direction to kind of support this mission.
Uh-huh.
It feels like you guys have a little bit of a shared mission where she's really digging into nonverbal autism and the way that they can connect telepathically,
I have heard of
including
that.
when they're on the other side.
Mm.
And talking about how we had, like, essentially that we've kind of clogged our own way of doing this.
Yeah.
And then how can we like learn?
The
Yeah.
clairs actually bring it to us. And we actually talk about the clairs in the course of like, what are your clairs? And what's really cool, Jenny, is like all the things that I have picked up on in my journey, I'm able to like condense it here in one place. And I remember at that retreat, we also talked about the different ways we can sense energy. And I brought some of that into this course of like, yes, also like every single one of us has a different way that's more available to us, right? And so naming that and being like, what is more available to you, and how can we develop that further? Because yeah, I think that there's way more people that have this ability
I
to
think so
connect
too.
and don't, you know?
It's so beautiful because a lot of these energies, I believe, just like when you talk about people, like these energies of like Christ consciousness and Mary Magdalene are also always accessible. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, can we? And sometimes I call them doorways to the divine of like, what's your doorway? And like, that's why I love talking about spiritual exploration because there are so many. There are so
Mm-hmm.
many ways to connect with energy. There's so many ways to connect with the divine. And it's not like a one size fits all.
Yeah.
And so it's like, can we have the freedom to have these conversations? Can we have the freedom to explore? Because when we learn ours, oh my gosh, when you're like, oh, this, when I'm having a bad day or when I need realignment, it's like you know more of your own medicine.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, this is kind of like my fast track to connection, which might look different than yours, might look different than someone else's. And it's all beautiful because we get to come together like Power Rangers who all have our own gifts, you know,
Yeah.
and be
Yeah.
like, great.
And it would be so great if it was more normalized. Like people
Yeah.
don't want to admit that they're doing this because it might sound weird. We've met so many people that have reached out and been like, I talked to my mom who passed away, and like I've never told anyone because I thought people would think I was weird to, or maybe I don't even know if I'm actually talking to them, but it feels good. And so it's like, let's just make it more normal. Like it's okay if you hear voices,
Right.
I hear voices, like let's talk about that, like let's not be ashamed. And I think it's we're hoping it opens up the conversation more. It opens up the like acceptance that like even cool, like my husband is so cool. Like I am not. I'm a big nerd. Like I've always been a nerd. Like but my husband is like cool. And so if like a cool guy like him could be like, yeah, I talk to the other side, or yeah, I do breath work, or yeah, like I'm sitting in this major meeting with millionaires around the table and I have to sit out and do a little breath work and come back in, like entrepreneurs, like, you know what I mean? Like it should be more normal to use these modalities in our lives. And
Yeah, these very natural modalities, I will
yes.
say. Like we're using air and our breath and our body
Yeah.
and divine connection and our minds.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am all for this movement and I love that you are making it available and accessible for people to learn. And then I'm just seeing like paired with this work that you're doing here and then like your somatic work too as people, it's just what you're talking about, shame, right? Like shame lives in our bodies.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so we get to unwind that too. And this is a Lunar New Year just happened. You're the snake of like shedding the things that no longer serve and like crawling into our new selves, you know? And it's just all so beautiful that you have all these tools and these gifts and that you're able to speak a language that so many, need to hear and are becoming more open to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's funny you named the shame in our bodies coming up just last week. And I had asked you, is this going to be a video podcast? And the reason why is as I was sharing a bunch of my story, right? I've been getting really vulnerable on Instagram about my abuse as a child. And immediately the cystic acne just across my face. I got a huge cold sore and I had this like pain in my stomach that would not go away. And it was like, what is this? And I went to the guy that does a lot of energy and body work for me. He does massage and all the things. And he was like, this is shame. This is like the residual shame, those layers that hadn't like emerged yet. Even though I'd done a ton of work, like now it was like, I was saying it to everyone and these parts of me were being seen. And he was like, cystic acne, like this, all that's on your face is you being like, almost like embarrassed of being seen. And so if you imagine when you have acne, you're kind of like covering your face and you're like, oh, I hope no one notices. And it's your energy manifests in your physical body. And so it was such a cool, even though I was in the middle of it, I was like, I'm hideous. I hate this so much. At the same time, as like a facilitator and as someone into this stuff, I was like, this is rad. Like, wow. That just happened.
I'm like, that's so cool. It is. Yeah, it's like you literally brought shame. And I was inside the body and it's like you brought it to the surface.
Yeah.
Like literally. And then like helped move it and clear it. And yeah, when we get to really learn our bodies in that way too, and explore our emotions and what we're feeling, it's amazing. It's a game changer.
It's so rad. It's so rad when you can tap in and like really listen to your body and learn the messages that it's speaking to you. Your body just becomes this like cool vessel. Like, and have you heard, people will say your body's a temple, right? Like, and it's, to me, it's true. Like my body is this temple that houses my sacred within. Yes. And is such a good manifester of showing me what is within, what is happening on the inside. I get to see it all on the outside, which is really, really cool.
That's so juicy. I've started doing a few of these little kind of like a mix between breathwork and embodiment practices called Holy Pleasure. Ooh. And I know, I'm like, I want to do one for you. Maybe I'll do an online one. But part of it is really honoring the body and the soul as like lovers and like having the soul just like be in worship and admiration of this body that allows us to be on this planet.
Yeah.
And that allows us to fulfill this mission. And then like vice versa, the body with the soul of like, thank you for like filling me with inspiration, with joy, with this gift, with this purpose. And just like the beautiful relation that they get to have in union.
Yeah.
To bring through what we're meant to bring through on this planet during this lifetime. So it's been really cool to kind of play in that space of worship and adoration and devotion, of just like devotion to your soul's mission, which, as you're saying, in some things that are in this course of like, is also devotion to your body, because your body is carrying out this mission.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. When I was first working through a lot of the sexual trauma, there was this moment where I remember feeling like seeing my body and my spirit like reach out to each other. It was like this moment where it was like, are we going to come into union? Because my body had been stuck in this trauma my whole life. And I could almost see my body as like this like scared little girl, just like, I don't want to grow up. Like I can't do it. I can't do it. And my higher self, like my spirit was like, it's time. Like you can do this. Like I will hold you in it. Like it's time to be a woman. It's time to step, because we have a purpose. And I saw like my higher self just like reach out and like hold this inner child, my body. Like it was like my body was going, okay, let's go. Like, and it was a really beautiful experience. And there was a song that had come on that was like, you know how songs will come on in just the right moment and you're like, it's exactly what's happening right now. And it was a Natalie Taylor song, and it was like surrender. You know her song
Yes.
Surrender? Can we
Yes. Oh, it's so
surrender?
beautiful.
And it was like, can we surrender? Can you surrender to each other? Can we be this bond that we go do life together, body and spirit? So I love what you're saying. Like, I'm all about it. I'm joining it. Whatever you do, I'll be there. You know I will.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I love all of this. I feel like I could talk to you like on and on and on. But as we kind of like close up here, I want to know from you as someone who's like really in this world right now and launching this beautiful course, which I'll make sure everyone knows how to find, which when it's launching soon. Yeah.
Yeah, we're hoping in 2 weeks.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So everyone go check that out. I'll put it in the show notes. We'll guide you there. Is there a website?
There's a website. The course isn't active on it yet, but it's howtospeaktogod.com.
Beautiful. Howtospeaktogod.com. So that's one, I think, beautiful starting point for people who are hearing the whispers, right? Or the glimmers or the glimpses of, I know that I'm expanding. And where do I go? What do I do? Especially those who know in their heart that they don't want to like fully just leave everything they've ever learned behind and like go on their own, right? They're just expanding. Are there any tools from your journey other than the course that you would maybe suggest for maybe particularly women of like how to navigate this time of life where expansion happens?
Yeah, I think when I started learning about my menstrual cycle, that was really, really helpful for me. And the different phases that we go through. I remember in one of the books I was studying, it was like, we are 4 different women in 1 month. We're in the energy of 4 different women, and we live our lives like confused about it. Like, why last week was I so motivated and this week like I'm not? And when I started learning about my menstrual cycle, it actually helped me in all the other parts of my life, because I got to release this belief that like I needed to show up a certain way consistently. And when I learned that, like, no, that the flow actually does this, and I get to find the strengths in each of those phases and work with those. So in this phase, when I'm outgoing and I'm feeling that more masculine energy, like I'm going to write it. I'm going to go be on the podcast. I'm going to go interview the people. I'm going to be social. I'm going to go to the parties. And then when I'm in my luteal and I'm more withdrawn and I'm more in my feminine, I'm going to take the time to sit and like ponder what I'm doing in my business or what I'm, and so using those phases of my cycle have been really, really supportive in helping me expand to the different things in my life in the way that, my spirit wanted to, but was so confused about or carried so much shame.
Yeah, that is a beautiful reminder that we get to like come home to who we are and how we operate.
Yeah. Because we're different. We are very different than men. Our bodies, our energetic signatures, like we are different. And so we need to stop acting like we're men in the way that we show up in the world. Like, we get to show up differently, and it's so powerful when we embody that, when we're like accepting of that. And I've seen it with women time and time again when they finally accept that they're not as a consistent like across the board all the time. And they get to play with that. They get to play with like this like energy when they're kind of PMS-y, like let's play with the PMS feeling instead of having shame that I'm like so mean right now, like let's play with the meanness and like kind of make beauty out of it. And that self-love spreads across our whole life and everything that we do.
That's so beautiful. Well, once again, I'm just like in admiration of everything that you and your husband and your family are bringing through right now, and your friends and your community. Like, this is where it starts, right? There's like a spark, and it grows and it lights up others. And I'm just, I'm so excited and like honored to be like in this movement with you.
You as one of my mentors always. So I'm so grateful that you speak your truth, because there are definitely these nuggets that I pull into my own work, my own coaching with others, that when you speak it, I'm like, yes, that resonates. I'm going to pass that on to the next woman.
I love that. And I so believe, especially as women, like, yes, everyone take all the nuggets that from
I don't know
everywhere.
any of the nuggets. Like,
I don't own any nuggets.
My nuggets.
I'm a vessel for nuggets, free flowing. Because that's how this happens, how this remembrance happens. So thank you so much. And I'll put in the show notes how to find Holly, how to find the course, because I know there's going to be so much resonance for this conversation. And thank you for continuing to show up and having courageous conversations around loss, around grief, around assault, around being a woman. Like, these are big topics. These are big topics that you just navigate so beautifully because of all the work you've done and are now able to help guide others.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed that conversation, got some inspiration, got some nuggets. If you enjoyed this conversation, we would love to know. Head on over to my social media, to Holly's social media. Everything is in the show notes. And be sure to check out that course, howtospeaktogod.com. And stay tuned right here on Mystic Bloom for more incredible conversations on feminine faith, embodiment, mysticism, spirituality, and all the things.